Hello and welcome to the Tilting Ground Morning Paper Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me at long last is Timmy Norcus. How are you, sir?
It's good to be back.
Man, it's been a long time.
It has.
We have missed so much. So much has been not covered.
I know. I feel so terrible because I had so many things come up with family stuff and everything, but it's great to do this again.
Yes, it is. These things happen. We live lives, and those things take precedent over our little venture here. But we are back. Um, and while we were gone, the Cleveland Cavaliers became NBA champions.
Was it that long ago?
It was a while. It seems like a long time ago. I mean, just look at the way the NBA moves. It's like they have the finals, and then the next week is the draft. And that
Yeah,
does not happen
it's
in the NFL, for example.
yeah, I mean I guess the last time we spoke was the right actually probably I think it was right when Draymond Green got suspended and I liked the Cavs or to win game 5 if I recall.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's about right.
Yeah.
So in that time, the Cavs have won the NBA championship. They had the NBA draft. Yeah, we're on to the Cavs are on to the preseason game, whoever their first
Yeah.
game is against.
We can do
Um,
a nice summer league roster breakdown.
yeah, yeah. And so they had the NBA draft, and then they had NBA free agency, and it turns out it's probably a really good thing that the Cavs won this year because um, their foe is considerably better now than they were when they played.
I would say most people think so, but apparently not all.
Not, not, not everyone. It is. I have heard, and we will refer to Justin. By the way, we have to give a shout out to Justin for his triumph, his Cleveland Cavalier triumph. That has, that was the biggest thing. As everyone knows who listens to this, like I am not a big LeBron guy, but Justin is my friend, and he
I,
does not
I,
he does not to get to have happiness very often, and he got to experience it for the first time in his life. Well, I should not say that because the Ohio State Buckeyes have, but I don't think he cares about Ohio State as much as he does like
right.
Cleveland pro
I
team.
mean, yeah, like of course you'd rather have them win than not win. But I
Yeah,
thought my favorite part of it, honestly, and this was like the most Clevelandy Justin thing to say, is like, yeah, of course I'm happy they won, but like I'd rather have it be the Indians or the Browns. As if
yeah.
like, like, yeah, it's great, but like
I
still
You know
wanted
what though?
more.
I appreciate his honesty about that.
Right.
Like I and
Yeah.
honest like and the good thing about like those like I really feel like the Browns, that's the one. Like I feel like if the Browns ever won the Super Bowl, I feel like they wouldn't wait for the parade to have a parade. Like people would just be in the streets for like a week.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and like meeting Justin in college, I always remember like not knowing him growing up, but I know he played football and baseball
yeah,
growing up. So that's why probably those two,
yeah,
obviously stand out even more. So,
yeah,
but
um,
yeah, I mean, good for him.
yeah,
That is good.
yeah, yay,
I mean,
Justin.
between all of our group of friends, like we've all had like our teams win, and not just once, like multiple times,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Except for him. So,
Hmm. So,
yeah.
yeah, good on Justin. Um, and now that that's out of the way, we need to talk about Kevin Durant to the Warriors. Um, how surprised were you when you heard the news?
Um. Well, okay. So the first time I heard it is when you texted me because I was at the Fourth of July parade with my family.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, not that I have the type of phone that can look these things up, but like I probably wouldn't have been doing it anyways.
Right.
Um, I I guess I would say I'm not surprised at all that he left because like once you started to hear that, like, hey, this is gonna be like not like a 1 year thing, like this is gonna be like a, for the next 4 or 5 years or whatever, like it became pretty clear to me, at least. It felt like, well, how can he commit to Oklahoma City when Russell West without knowing what Russell Westbrook's gonna do,
Right.
right? I definitely think like maybe in his mind, like, oh, I can go to Golden State and like they didn't win a title, so it's not like I'm just like jumping on the bandwagon, even though like obviously he kind of is. But
No, he is.
like I'm not surprised. He was there for 9 years, right? So
He was.
it's not like this is some like like, oh, I didn't give it a shot. Like, I mean, it's been 9 years. Like, basically, after this next contract, like he'll definitely be out of his prime, right?
Yeah.
Not when I say next contract, I don't mean like this 1 year deal, but like the one that he's gonna get like 4 years after that.
Yeah. What is he, like 26 now? 27?
Well, he's played 9 years in Oklahoma City, and he played 1 year at Texas. So
So
yeah,
19, 28.
20. He's there 27, 28. I don't know his
Okay.
exact birthday
All
or
right.
whatever. So I'm not surprised he left. I guess like, I mean, you see the teams that he's taking meetings with, so like they're obviously all like contenders. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, if you want to join a contender or like the best chance to win, then like obviously it's Golden State, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, like, look, like this has been like kind of like talked about for the last like 4 or 5 months, So
Well, I remember the guru Adrian Wojnarowski, like he brought it up and everyone was laughing at him.
right,
Because it's like, why would this team that, I don't know, at the time they were like 50-3 or something. It's like, why would you consider breaking this team up? You know,
yeah,
obviously it's you have an excuse that since you lost, they
yeah,
lost in the finals, so now they have, hey, we need to get better. Like we weren't good enough, and that kind of Harrison Barnes playing like crap, pretty much. I mean, that gave them a nice little get rid of
yeah,
him card.
and like the breaking it up, like
They're not really
they
breaking it up.
right, like they would have had to break it up next year anyways.
Right,
Like, I mean, some ancillary pieces, right?
right.
So like they could afford basically to run it back this year because like Steph Curry's on this past deal.
Hmm.
But like once Harrison Barnes, and like the crazy part to me, it was like, hey, if we don't get Durant, we're matching this like 4 for 94.
Yeah.
And so, then you're not going to be able, like they picked up Livingston's option for this year, but then he's going to want a big raise and he'll be gone. Bogut's going to be gone. So they're going to lose some of these guys
I mean, they
anyways.
essentially would have run it back this year.
Right. It would have been it'd be 1 year. It'd
Right,
basically be 1 year.
right.
So I guess kind of surprising to me though is like it always kind of felt like Golden, like even though like I did think he was going to leave, like it always felt like Golden State, right?
I mean, it's the best. I mean, if you're gonna leave, you might as well stack the deck. Like it would be, because here's the problem. Golden, well, not the problem. The thing about it is, Golden State is the only team that, if he went to them, you could say they were definitely better than his current situation. So, like,
Um,
if he'd gone to the Spurs, it's like, well,
I think that
if he had stayed with the Thunder, like they might be better than what the Spurs are. You know, like the Spurs, I
yeah,
feel like the Thunder were better. But like if he goes to the Warriors, they're clearly better. Like, and obviously like the Celtics, like the Warriors are, I mean the Thunder are better than the Celtics.
right,
Him on the Thunder is better than him on the Celtics. The same with the Heat.
right.
Um,
I
so
think I definitely think like if they kept it together, like him on the Clippers, I think is better than him on the Thunder. Now
but he would have had to take less money though.
he would have had to take. Well, I mean, he still took a little less money. Um, but I mean, if we're just looking at it as like
No, but like
team,
considerably less money.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, so that's why like some of these, like even though he took like 5 or 6 meetings, it never really felt Like maybe it was just out of respect to like Pat Riley or
Yeah.
Greg Popovich and RC
Yeah.
Buford, but like and then the minute like all these meetings are done, you start hearing leaking. It's already like, well, it's either Golden State or Oklahoma City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I was I will admit I didn't hear the thing about it's going to be a long term. It's not going to be. I didn't hear that. I thought
oh,
it was
really?
yeah. I thought it was always kind of like a 1+1 thing, so I didn't think it mattered. Um, so I guess that probably made me feel like Oklahoma City was more likely.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I was stunned just because I put a lot of stock in previous comments, not just about like this season or whatever, but just like in the past, like he showed so much disdain for guys who, you know,
Yeah.
gamed the process, I guess. Like, I mean, I think he had a tweet, that was kind of anti LeBron when LeBron made his choice.
Right. That was like,
He,
yeah, you see it like making rounds now from like 6 years ago.
yeah, and and obviously things can change or whatever, but he was always like he got mad at Reggie Jackson because he wanted a trade. It's like, well, if he doesn't want to be here, then he can get out.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just kind of felt like, well, I mean, he's pretty consistently been a guy who's not just gonna run the greener pastures. And I felt like with what Oklahoma City did when they got rid of Ibaka and they brought in Oladipo and then they got the draft pick
And Sabonis, yeah.
to essentially kind of replace Ibaka a little bit. Um, I felt like they got better, and like if he had stayed with Oklahoma City, then Golden State would have run back, whatever they had last year. So I felt like Oklahoma City, you can say that they almost might be the favorites over Golden State. Like if they're going to be the same team. So that's why I was
Yeah.
like,
I
I
mean,
don't
I
know. I,
guess.
I feel like I felt like if there was ever a time for him to stay, like now is kind of it because
Right.
that core can stay together for the foreseeable future, and I get the thing with Westbrook, but I don't know.
I definitely think Westbrook's gone. And like he would have been
What
gone
he's
next year
well,
regardless.
he's definitely gone now. I mean,
Right.
the
He's definitely
terrible
gone
thing is,
now.
I mean, this pretty much ruins the Thunder.
Um,
How will they ever recover from this? I mean,
well,
they did it perfectly. I mean, everything how the team was constructed, like it went as perfect as you could hope for. Like they drafted every single one of these guys and they hit on all of them. And, they might trade Russell Westbrook at any point at this point. I mean, they're all going to be gone.
right. So, well, a couple things. One, um, I think at best case, like, I mean, I don't know that they'd be the favorite. Like, I know they played that series, but like, that's still like an extremely small sample size compared to like, and you can say the regular season doesn't matter, but like, look, like, there's these guys are still trying to win, right? And so I finished whatever was 18 games better than them. I would still favor the Warriors, but I mean, it's still like maybe like a 60-40 thing or something like that. You know what I mean?
It's a lot
Um,
closer.
I think while like long term that trade is good for them, I, I don't know. Like I feel like watching Victor Oladipo, it's not like this guy's some dynamic player. Like he can't shoot. He's a good defender. I think a lot of it'll depend on how good Sabonis is. But like if I'm them, you basically tear it down. You have it. I mean, you could be terrible this year if you trade Russell Westbrook before the season, right?
Yeah, I mean they will be awful.
Right. So you have a chance to pick up a top 3 pick this year. Whoever you're getting for Russell Westbrook, I mean, it's not a good situation. It's not a good situation. But whoever you're getting, like, don't trade him to a team where you're going to get a bunch of first round picks like that end up in the 20s.
Right.
So I mean, I guess that would be the thing is like you just start over, and like you bottom out this year, you get a big nice pick, and then whoever you trade Westbrook to, you get some more picks, and yeah, I mean
I mean that's what you
the
you
worst
have
thing,
to do. Go ahead.
yeah, the worst thing that they could do is keep Westbrook, either like barely make the playoffs or just out of the playoffs, lose him for nothing, and then like, you're picking 13th. Like that would set the franchise back years.
But like I don't know, it just seems doesn't it seem hopeless? Because what they would try to do now is the thing that they did last time, and I mean, what are the odds that it works that perfectly again? Not
Well,
that
I
you
mean,
get the
the
picks, but
odds
then
aren't
the picks.
the odds aren't great, but like hopeless. It's like, look, like we did this once before. It's like we've already proven we can do this, and Sam Presti, as much as like the Harden trade, like them choosing Ibaka over him, like didn't work out. Like you can't tell me, and like certainly Harden's like a better player. Like you can't tell me the Thunder would have been better last year with Harden over Steven Adams, just like the way the team's constructed, right? So like,
What
yeah,
I'm talking about just that they drafted four guys, and three of them became like top 15 players. And then
yeah.
Ibaka, was he ever an all-star? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe
he was
once.
he was definitely good. I mean, he would have
Right.
started on most teams.
But it seems
So
like even he plateaued, right? Like it went from like,
right,
wow,
but
this guy
I
can be a
just think
dynamic
like
player. So
if the Lakers out of Randall, Russell, and Ingram, if those guys, I mean, what are the odds that those three turn into top 15 NBA players? They
uh
got to be so small, just out of just luck variance.
right, very small.
Yeah. So I now the Thunder have to do it again. I mean, that's what you have to do. It's the smart thing, but
Yeah.
God, it just seems like this would just crush them.
Yeah, I mean it's not a good situation. And
No.
I guess the worst part is too, and I heard this today, so I can't take credit for it. But like if you trade him, like when the Nuggets traded Carmelo Anthony, like it was one of the few times that like a team's traded a superstar like that and everyone felt like they got a good deal back, right?
Right.
Like what did that get them?
The
Nothing, right?
Nuggets?
Like yeah, what did that get the Nuggets?
It got them um it got them some playoff appearances.
No.
It didn't?
Well, it got them one. Sorry. I take that back. It got them
Oh,
one. Um
okay. I mean, I don't
but
know. If the Thunder were to trade Russell Westbrook and at any point they made the playoffs in the next 5 seasons, like I'd be very impressed.
well look like yeah. I mean I guess I guess I don't even know who they would like Denver was still even this year like had the ability to like pick swap with New York. So like it was
Right.
still kind of like that's how far down the line, which is good for them. It's like, no, I don't want your first round pick now. I want your first round pick like 5 years from now.
Right.
Because like I had seen somebody mention like, hey, if you trade Russell Westbrook to Miami for like, just start with like Goran Dragic and uh Justice Winslow and then some picks. Like, okay, like you're starting that conversation, but like, do you really want like their pick next year? It's like, no, it's going to be in the 20s. But if you take their pick like 4 or 5 years from now, when like Dwayne Wade's gone and a couple of these other guys are gone, then like, yeah, I mean, maybe that's something.
Right. Well, I mean, I think what you'd want to do, I think there's a couple teams that have what they would want. Um, but even like on this note, like well, like so the Celtics are one
Yeah.
because they can offer young players and they have the Brooklyn pick, so it doesn't even matter how
Right.
it
But the
doesn't
problem
matter how
the problem with any of these trades as opposed to the Carmelo one is Carmelo was going to a team that like he was going to stay with and sign with, right?
right.
So like the Knicks never had to worry about that, but like Russell Westbrook's going to be a free agent, 361 days from now.
Well, the other one is the Lakers, obviously,
Yeah.
because they have they have players that basically like you don't have to wait to tank to get the draft picks because the Lakers basically already took them.
Yeah.
Um, So depending on who they would want, like they could ask for a couple of them and then future picks.
Yeah.
Because the Lakers don't have like next year's pick, for example. Like, can you
It,
trade a protected pick? Like, I don't even know if you can.
um, I don't think so.
Yeah, so it would be a couple years down the line. Um,
Right. And it would be a terrible deal for the Lakers.
yeah, I don't want them to do it. Um, but well, I mean, we can get into that later. But yeah, I mean, the Thunder. I don't. I think
So okay,
honestly.
so their line. There's two lines that I saw today. The regular line, which you're getting like minus 110 on either side, is
Okay.
68 and a half. Right.
Okay.
And then the other line I saw was 73 and a half, and you're getting like plus 400, which so like they're a 4-1 dog for that.
You're talking about
Uh,
the Warriors.
the Warriors, yeah.
Yeah.
74 and 8, is that out of the realm of possibility?
It's not out of the realm, but I don't like it.
Yeah, and I agree. And the reason I explain this is because even if they start 35-5, it's hard to commit to like going for the record at that point, right?
Right. Right.
Like you can't commit to going 74 and 8 until you're in the last like 15, 20 games.
Yeah, you'd have to be like you'd have to be like 60-3 or something.
Or so yeah, or like 60-4.
Yeah.
Or I guess even 60-5, right? Because at that point it's like, are you gonna lose 3 of your last 17 or whatever? But
Yeah.
yeah, so like if you like I said, if you start 35-5, which means like, you're on a 70 win pace, you're still not gonna go for it.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see because they already didn't play a lot of minutes last year, but they didn't really like they didn't full on like rest guys for games. It was just they didn't play a lot of fourth quarters. Like if you look at minutes played, like Curry and Thompson played less minutes than LeBron,
Hmm.
and it's LeBron's just like sitting out whole games like just for rest.
Right.
Um, so I mean, I never bought that as far as like rest in the playoffs, but um, I mean, look, like you can't rest all four guys anyways, just because there's not enough guys on the roster.
Right.
Um, Plus, and you start seeing the reverse effect is like teams that are going up against you rest their guys because it's like, why should we have these guys play against the Warriors?
Right.
You know, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like over 68 and a half, but under 73 and a half.
Yeah, I said I thought 69 was the number. So
Yeah.
it seemed right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it'll take them a little bit to figure out where everyone's supposed to be on the floor. I mean, that's the main thing is like everyone needs to, have their role defined in whatever way. And I feel like the
Right.
first 30 to 35 games, like they just need to figure out like, okay, where am I going to get my shots in this game? Do I need to shoot early? Do I need to, am I willing to wait a little bit to figure out the defense, that sort of thing? Like everyone's got a lot to figure out. Um, so, I mean, and that's assuming no injuries, which they didn't get last year until really the playoffs.
Right. Like they had a couple like, we're going to miss a game here, miss a game there, but there was never
Yeah,
like, hey, so and so's out for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
yeah, right. So,
you know?
I mean,
Uh,
we debated today on email whether or not it was like good for the league, and you've always kind of you were heavy on the side of like, well, the teams always had, you know, two or three like dominant teams.
right. Yeah. I mean, like, I can't even believe, honestly, I can't even believe we're having this conversation.
I mean, I can't believe that you would not believe it. I mean, it's just like it's the fact that like, and you made the point that like there's always been super teams, and it's like yes, there were, like the point that I made, but like in the '90s and 2000s, like yeah, it was Jordan and Pippen, but it was like the two of them, and they drafted them, like they became that, you know.
I more meant super team as in like, it's like the season's a formality. Like that's more what I meant. Not like, hey, this one team has 2 superstars, this other team has 4 superstars. It was more like, look, like the Bulls were going to be in the finals, and then there was like 1 or 2 other teams that could maybe challenge them in the West. I mean, you're always going to have 2 title contenders, right? Just because like there's 2 teams in the NBA Finals. But
I
like
guess that. Go ahead.
it was. I mean, they were just massive favorites. Like it always just felt like a formality.
I guess the thing that people don't like. Oh, I don't want to speak for people. I'll just say me. Like I don't like that it comes across that the players are engineering this. You know, like with
Right.
LeBron and Wade and Bosh, like they all had this deal. Like we're gonna go to one team and we're all gonna take less money and we're gonna game the system so that we can be champions.
Yeah.
And like there's just and the NBA has like a fixing problem anyway. And now like I don't feel like that. Like I don't feel like they gamed the system. Like they had an opportunity to get Durant and they went after it. Like I don't feel like there was collusion here, but
Right. Like it's basically one piece, but it's just a way bigger piece.
yeah. And it just like I mean he was the MVP of the NBA like 2 years ago, and then he joins the team
Yeah.
of the two-time MVP that followed him, and
I mean, I guess I look at it like this. Like,
it's like that's just not supposed to happen. Like I don't know how else to put it, and like I can look at it like a number of ways, and it makes I can defend it from Durant's point of view. But like it just seems like as a fan, like it's just they're engineering championships, and that's not
right.
fun. I
Well,
don't like that.
it's because of how it's set up. So it's easier to justify like, hey, Durant, he wants to kind of take the easy way out and go to Golden State. But at the same time, it's like saying like, oh, like James Worthy, he's a good player, but he's just fine, kind of like riding Magic and Kareem's coattails in LA to some titles. But it's like it feels different because he was already there and he was drafted, right?
It also feels different because Kevin Durant is clearly like one of the best players in the NBA, and James Worthy is not.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer though.
No, but like I'm talking like singularly
Right.
great.
Okay. Well, then, I mean, look, like it's a little bit before my time, but I think generally, like, I think Kevin McHale at one point was one of the best players in the NBA, and he was fine just kind of like being another Celtic, right? But it just feels different because, like, he's already there as opposed to, like, we're not going to crush him and be like, oh, you could have had a chance to lead another team, like, by yourself and be the number one guy. I mean, look, like, the system's not good because of the way the salary cap is. So like guys are willing to take like a smidge less money to win a title. Right? Like that's basically what Durant's doing. He's like leaving like $1 million or $2 million on the table, which is nothing. I mean, it's nothing,
No,
right?
no. I
So
mean, when he's making 100,
yeah, I mean, as far as it being like bad for the NBA, like I don't know, like it gives them a villain, right? Like the NBA had like killer TV ratings like when Miami and LeBron happened because it was like a villain. Like people would hate watch it, right? And maybe it'll be a little bit different because like they're on the West
yeah.
Coast. They're on the West Coast, so it's a little harder to hate watch it for like, the Eastern Seaboard, but um I think there's gonna be a lot of that. And look, like we're kidding ourselves if we think the regular season has ever mattered. Especially in the last 15 years. Like I can't speak to the 80s, but like I mean, I guess it actually probably kind of started with the Lakers. Like they didn't really care if they won the Pacific, right?
No.
Yeah, and then like
Well, I think more specifically, Shaq did not care.
okay, that's very fair. But
Kobe
like
definitely cared.
yeah, well, Kobe wanted to win every game, and I get that. But like
Right.
the Spurs, like yeah, if they are the number one seed, great. But like, I mean, they're flat out. I mean, they got fined for just resting players,
They
like
did.
just rest, like DNP
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, like this for sure they're gonna sell out every road game. right? It's going to be the most. It's going to be the hottest
Oh,
ticket
no
in town.
question. No
So
question. I mean,
like,
look,
I don't.
I think that financially, people want to watch. I mean, it's not like they're
Yeah,
not going to get ratings. I just think like if I feel like it's I don't want to say rigged because that's such a Trump thing to say, but like if I feel like it's being manipulated, like the players are manipulating the league, and if it's just going to be like a bunch of great players on one team in one conference and a bunch of great players on another team in another conference, I mean, it's like you said, well then just put them in a best of 30 series or best of 31 and just let them play for 3 months.
well, I think maybe what'll happen, and this will actually really be good, is like there's obviously more like great players than there are like than you can put on two teams, right? Like one in the East and one in the West.
Right.
So like for instance, like how good would the Spurs be this year if Russell Westbrook was their point guard? I mean, yeah, you could make the point like Greg Popovich would hate it, but like I mean that's just a massive upgrade, right?
Well, I mean,
So
are you what are you what are you leading towards here?
no, just like if it only feels rigged because there's only one or two teams doing it. But what if
Right.
there's like five or six teams doing it, right? I mean, it's going to be terrible for like,
What you're talking about is contracting then.
no, you're not contracting. You're just basically building like, you made the reference to like La Liga and the Bundesliga, but what you're really doing is making it more like the EPL, right? Where there's like five or six teams. And it is kind of like a crapshoot between those five or six teams every year. Now, the bottom like 14 teams have no chance. That's kind of what you're doing.
Well, I don't want to talk about the EPL. Like let's put it in terms of La Liga because at least the top two or three teams in those leagues they are great in the world.
Three, right? They're three.
Like who cares about this stupid LA
Well,
Galaxy?
what I'm saying
Seattle
is because in
Sounders
the
garbage.
EPL,
I
like
see I see what you're saying. I get
I
what you're
think,
saying. But
yeah, I
like
think with the
but
NBA, there's
so
enough.
but what I'm saying though is like if all like the really good players just got onto like five or six teams, then that's fine. But then why do we need 30 franchises? It's like they
Um,
would be in a different league. It's like they wouldn't even.
right. I mean, we generally don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't. Do we need 30 franchises now?
Yeah, but we really wouldn't then.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't even care about that.
Okay. I mean, but that
I,
can't be good for the league if they're contracting teams.
yeah, I don't think they would end up contracting teams because you're still gonna have teams like, for instance, like Minnesota now, where like they're able to control a lot of these guys for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be the chance, like, if you draft right or whatever and do all these things to improve your situation. And I do think the one thing that maybe the NBA has shown us is like I don't think your actual market really matters, right?
Hmm.
Like these teams can kind of come out of nowhere. Like obviously South Beach is South Beach, but like, I mean, Miami had no real history, right? I
No.
mean, Kevin Durant's not choosing Golden State because it's in Oakland. He's choosing it because they built something there. Like that could have been built anywhere.
Right.
So I think these teams could still pop up out of nowhere. It's not necessarily going to be like a LA or Boston or Chicago or New York thing. Yeah, I mean, it. I would say it makes the regular season less exciting, but like the only thing exciting about the regular season last year was the Warriors going for 73 wins, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so like, what's the difference?
Well, I told you the difference to me.
I mean, just for the regular season.
Right. I mean, just overall, like it just takes
Yeah.
away, you know. Um, so are you, I imagine you're not on the side of Kevin Durant being a big wimp about this whole thing.
Um, No, I mean, like, we have. I saw John Wong posted it. Like, it's such maybe like short term memory isn't the right term, but like we we think, oh, like what's his legacy going to be like? It's like, well, winning two titles in Golden State's going to be better than like, well, at least he stuck it out in Oklahoma City if he ends up with zero, right? Like when we think of guys like Ewing and Stockton and Malone and Reggie Miller and Charles Barkley, it's never about like, man, these guys look how long like they stuck it out in Salt Lake City. It's like, nope, couldn't get past Jordan, couldn't win when Jordan was even not there. Like that's what you think of. And look, like
But like
I
I
guess
wouldn't
the
think like, oh, like I, I don't
I
know.
guess the good
Like I
part for
wouldn't say
Durant,
like Barkley, like then he should go join Jordan then.
yeah, but like I think the good part, like maybe it's a different example because like if Barkley joined Jordan, like there's still a clear pecking order of who the number one player is, right? Like it would be crazy to think like Barkley would be the number one guy. Like, I mean, there's a real good possibility that like Kevin Durant is winning Finals MVPs there, and is like kind of widely accepted as their best player. Where like that would have never happened with Barkley and Jordan. So if that's the case, then like if you're the best player on a title winning team, like to me it
Well,
almost doesn't.
that's the case. Well, that's the case for LeBron, right? I
Right.
mean, because I think that's the short term memory that you're talking about because everyone said the same thing about LeBron when he went to Miami.
Yeah.
But then when they won titles, he was the best player.
It certainly
So
hasn't. It certainly hasn't hurt LeBron that like in the 3 or 4 years before he got to Miami, and now in the 2 years since that they have like one playoff series win. Right. Like it's
right. Well,
beyond the fact that he was obviously their best player and won MVPs. Like,
well,
look,
right. I mean, not just that, but it's like they took away like whether or not he was like one of their top three players left with no, um, with nothing in return. So that's first, and second, like the other of their top three players can't play because he's got some sort of mystery ailment.
yeah,
So I mean,
which actually would be crazy. Like if like they got Westbrook and they got to keep if Bosch stayed healthy with Wade and Whiteside, like that's pretty legit, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Like
they
that's
would.
that.
That's an Eastern Conference Finals team.
But like not only that, like that's challenging Cleveland for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I just don't know that Bosch is really ever gonna be healthy again, though.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I mean, he's
I
got
doubt
fresh
it.
legs now. That's for sure.
Total of fresh legs. He has not. He has. Yeah. No, so the LeBron thing, it's like everyone said it would hurt his legacy, and it kind of hasn't. Um, at all. Like no, like because if you're the best player on the title winning team, then the championships are quote unquote yours, right? Like
Yes.
this is
Correct.
the argument that against Kobe of having five. It's like, well, three of those were with Shaq. It's like they're somehow not as much his because he wasn't that best player, for better or worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so if that scenario was to come true, um, and he was the Finals MVP and like let's say hypothetically he becomes the final like the NBA MVP this year or in the next couple years with the
Yeah.
Warriors, and then they win two finals and he's the MVP of both.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say his legacy is then affected because you know
Well, it's affected for the better,
right,
obviously.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the negative, so it'd
Right.
be hard to say that. But then, like for me, like I don't like legacy is essentially narrative, right?
Hmm.
Like Charles Barkley's legacy is affected by the conference he played in, when he played, like whatever, you know. Um,
Yeah.
to me, it's more of like you you were against this. When I say you, I mean Durant. Like he was against it. He crapped on other players who did the same thing. He always spoke of loyalty and he spoke of all this about whatever. And when he gave his MVP speech, it was all about Oklahoma City and all about Russell Westbrook and everything else. And then he changed his mind. Now, look, you want to change your mind? Change your mind. That's great. But like, he had a team, his team. It was his team. And it wasn't like LeBron leaving Cleveland with the poo-poo platter. Like,
Right.
Oklahoma City's got a really good team over there. And he had the chance to do it, and he left. He changed his mind or whatever. And you want to do that, then that's fine. But to me, it's like you were the leader and you turned your back on like everything. Like everything that you said before, it's like, look, there's changing your mind, and then there's like completely going against everything that you've ever said. So, I mean, that to me is like that the thing. Like that's the thing that I kind of hold against him. Now, look, he doesn't have to care what I think, and he shouldn't. I mean, it's his life or whatever. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was tired of playing with Russell Westbrook. I don't know.
Right. Everything you said is true, but for me, it feels like we're still like too close to this, right? So like,
absolutely,
10, 15 years from now, no one's gonna remember that tweet, right? Like, no one's gonna remember like him giving Reggie Jackson our time. Like, no one's gonna remember that.
Right.
We remember that now and today in the last couple days, because it's so fresh. So, like, look, like it has everything to do with look, are you going to be the best player on a title winning team? Because that's what we're going to remember. Or are you not?
But
because
then at the same time,
if they don't win, then that will really negatively affect his legacy.
And but at the same time,
you could have not won somewhere else.
Right. Right. I mean, I lost my train of thought. He's still like, no matter what happened, and even LeBron now, like, I feel like LeBron is validated by him winning in Cleveland this year. Even though like if he had not won in Cleveland, like, I feel like it still would hang over his head that like, hey, he had to stack the deck to do it,
Well, it would hurt because like we live now where like losing in the finals is somehow worse than like not making the finals at all, right? So like being 2-5 in the finals would have been worse than being 2-0. Even though like getting there 7 times is pretty incredible.
Well, I'm not even talking about the like his record. I'm just saying, like, he only won when the deck was severely stacked in his favor. Like, he stacked the deck, and that was when he won. He manipulated it. He could only win when he manipulated the whole thing. Then he went to Cleveland, and even though he kind of stacked the deck that time, because he wouldn't have gone to Cleveland if they didn't have the pieces that they were getting. But even so, like, they were heavy underdogs, and he did it. So he, like, to me, that is what validates him more so than winning the titles in Miami. Because it's like, look, I know if you get a bunch of great players together, they'll probably win a title. Like, that doesn't tell me much about any particular person. It's like the thing with Kobe. Like, wow, he deserves the championships as much as Shaq, because he didn't ask into that situation. He was drafted into it. Like, the 2 titles that he won with Pau and Lamar, like, those validate him, because he didn't have to play with the most dominant such and such in the league.
Well, he was the clear number 1.
Right, exactly. But it's not like it's not, Powell was not like top 5 at that point.
Right, like Powell was just an all-star.
Yeah.
He was a good player. I mean, he's a good player. He was a good player.
So that's
But
what validates him, and
he's never going to be thought of as like an all-time great.
I feel like with Kevin Durant, like even if he wins now, like that's still gonna be like you had to stack the deck.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that I've learned in the last like 36 hours is like when players stack the deck, like that's like looked down upon. But like when general managers and team presidents like stack the deck by like drafting well, it's like, oh, such a good run organization.
Well,
Like
but
to
I
me, like it
mean,
doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's the same.
honestly, I don't agree because like if you draft a guy, like you don't know,
I mean, you're drafting him because you think you know.
right? You think you do, but you don't.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, it's like
like
that's how the league is. Like you draft the best players like that. Like that is the thing of like every team has a chance. Like everyone can draft these guys, right? I mean, you're just getting
I
lucky.
mean, sort of, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
like
I
Ben
get
Simmons versus Brandon Ingram. Like,
for certainly for like guys that are picked in the second round, like yeah, everyone had a chance to get them.
right,
But like when you're talking about like these high end picks, like no, like not everyone has a chance to get Ben Simmons or Brandon Ingram.
right. But I mean, it's just like everyone has a chance to draft players. You know, like that's how the league works. You draft players on your team who you think are going to be good.
I guess you
You
could
know,
make the point that if you draft good players on your team, like that's kind of what leads to these players like joining up with the other good players you've already drafted. It's not like three or four of these guys have decided like, hey, let's go play in Sacramento or let's go play in even let's go play with the Knicks. It's like no, they're already like all these teams are being established by like already drafted players there, right?
no, I get it. No, I totally understand that. And it's like I mean, because Curry, Thompson, and Green are all drafted by the Warriors.
Right.
But it's like you don't. But like they didn't choose. You know, like they
What do you mean?
didn't. It's like they weren't good. Like they weren't super great at the time. It's like Kevin Durant. You know what he did? He manipulated the system. I mean, not really. I mean, basically, like his choice was. I mean, like the Heat situation is really unique. Like Chris Bosh and LeBron James said, we're all going to take less money to go win championships with the Heat.
Right. Well, and
Whereas Kevin
it's
Durant,
unique
like
because
he's not
at the
taking
time,
less money really at
right,
all.
and Dwayne Wade was a free agent too. Like they could have gone anywhere.
Right.
There, I remember because I remember there was like talk like, oh, Dwayne Wade might go to Chicago. Now look, like they all ended up back in Miami, and that's where Dwayne Wade was. But yeah, like that was like orchestrated by players. This was like one guy who's an unrestricted free agent, like choosing where he wants to go.
Yeah, this is more specific to like Durant himself.
And I guess like for me, it almost feels like would we feel any different if he chose San Antonio?
I would absolutely.
You would? It's
Yeah,
like they won 67 or 68 games, whatever it was.
I know, but well, I mean, I guess would I feel different? I would feel different
Like
in
five
that
games worth, 5 games different.
I would feel different in that I would think it's like I would think why did you do that? Like you had a better chance with the Thunder. Like I would think it was dumb.
Right.
Like why don't you just stay with the Thunder? Like you have a better chance with them, but at least I could buy his like look, I like their culture better, you know? It's like
Right.
I'm
Like I
willing to
can.
go to the lesser team because I don't like what's going on in OKC. Like I get that. All
Right.
right.
And I
Like
guess the
I
whole
can
point is
understand.
like, why go to the Spurs when you could just go to the Warriors at that point, right?
Right. Right. And it's like because it's like if you don't want to join the Warriors, then just stay with the Thunder and do it. Because you already beat the
Yeah.
Spurs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because like you can't compare it to any other situation, right? Because nobody's ever won 73 games,
no, it's
and nobody's
totally
ever
agree.
won, and nobody's ever won 73 games without winning the title.
It's
Because I mean, we'll never really know like what he would have done. if like there's a couple different things, and we never really know what would he have done if the Warriors won the title. We don't know what he would have done if like the Thunder beat the Warriors but then lost to the Cavs. I generally think if they would have won the title, then yeah, then he's coming back, right?
Yeah, they would have had to. He would have had to.
Do you think if they would have beat the Warriors and lost to the Cavs, he would be back?
Um,
Let's say in a semi-competitive.
I think in that
series.
I think in that situation, Steph Curry would have gone to the Thunder. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think if they would have gotten like soundly beaten,
right,
then he probably would have gone to the Warriors again still.
I mean, it's just kind of crazy how all these things like it's weird to think that maybe long term for the Warriors, that losing this title might have won them like 3 more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to like if they win this title and then Durant doesn't go there, and then they max out Harrison Barnes, and then like look like they struggle the next 4 years because they're paying Harrison Barnes $24 million a year or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to end by talking about why Russell Westbrook should not be on the Lakers next year or anytime soon. So here's the thing. The Warriors are going to be the best team in the league for the next 3 or 4 years, right?
I mean, look, technically, much like LeBron is an unrestricted free agent right now, Curry and Durant will be unrestricted free agents next year.
Right. But I just feel like you don't do this for a 1 year, what have you.
Right.
So I'm operating under that assumption. First of all, they have the entire advantage because Westbrook is a free agent next year also. So it's like, why would you give up assets to acquire someone that A, could walk away from you and you lose those assets, and B, if he wants to come, he can just come with that. Like, it's like, if he wanted to be a Laker, wouldn't he rather be a Laker with the talent or without the talent?
Right. It's kind of like what the Knicks had to do to get Carmelo.
Right.
Even though it was widely assumed he was going to go there.
Right. Right. So, but and then not just that, but then I don't want them to give up assets to acquire someone who won't make them like a really good team. So let's say you give up D'Angelo Russell and, Brandon Ingram or Julius Randle, whoever. It's like, okay, you take those guys out. Then you bring in Russell Westbrook. And so theoretically, you could bring in a high-priced free agent the next year, whoever that would be, right? So like there's Blake Griffin, and there's who?
Curry and Durant and LeBron.
Okay, none of them are coming. And that's the other thing. It's like, and that's the other thing. It's like we're supposed to like on the premise that someone's gonna want to come and play with Westbrook. Well,
they can't even get meetings with these guys.
Well, not just that, but someone just left Westbrook to go play somewhere else.
Yeah.
He was already on the team, and he left. So, and look, Westbrook isn't the type of guy that it's like, hey, if I go play with him, like he's going to enhance my game. Like Russell Westbrook is about Russell Westbrook. Like it's his game, it's his team. Like I wouldn't even want him on a team with a bunch of young players, because he sure is like he kept the ball away from Durant. Like he's sure as shoot not gonna pass the ball to Julius Randle or Brandon Ingram or whoever.
Yeah.
So he by himself, he makes them better, yes, but he doesn't make them like a title contender.
Right.
And
so
if he doesn't, then I don't then why? Why? Like the Lakers need to be good in 2019 and 2020. They don't need to be good next year or the year after that. Because there's no point in that. It's a waste.
Right. So the goal is to try and build a title contender.
Right.
And if that's what the goal is, then like I don't even know about 2019, 20. You're probably looking at like 2021, like realistically. Because then a lot of these kids will be older. And that's assuming that like you hit on one of them really big and another one is like still a pretty good player.
Well, in
But yeah,
2021, Brandon Ingram will be 23. Russell will be 24. Randall will be 25.
yeah. I mean, so like not old, but like they'll still be veterans. Like at that
That's
point, like
that's that's when they enter their prime.
right, like you've been in the league 5 or 6 years. Like no one
Yeah.
thinks of you as a kid anymore.
Right.
So I think, and I have made this case before, but like with the way that the Lakers are situated now, and you could certainly say this about Philadelphia and even definitely Minnesota, like those teams are in better shape to win a title. I mean, win a title, not just be like, hey, we're in the second round, than, 20 other teams, 22 other teams, right?
Right.
Because you might not have like any proven superstars, but like I've already seen all these other teams with their players, like they can't win. So like at this point, like unknown assets are better than just like decent assets, right?
Right.
Like for sure, like I guess the best case example would be like a team like Toronto, or I guess even like the Clippers. Like for sure, those teams are going to be better than the Lakers and the Sixers next year. But
Right.
like you can't win a title with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan as your two best players. Like you can't.
Right.
So when those teams need to actually like bottom out in 5 years, the Lakers, the Sixers, and the Timberwolves will have already done that. Like they'll be so far ahead of them.
Right.
Um, so I guess yeah, like I mean the worry if you're a Lakers fan is that the management is going to be like, look, we need to make the playoffs, which would set the franchise back a ton
Yeah.
to get a 7 or an 8 seed. Um,
Right.
yeah, I mean the goal is to win titles, not to just make the playoffs.
Right. And look, not trading for him doesn't mean that he won't be on the team. Because, like I said, if he wants to come, then he can.
Right.
He can just sign with them if he wants. And if he doesn't, then fine. Just do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like people complain about like the Mozgov deal, 4 years for 64 million or whatever it is, and Luol Deng. It's like, look,
It doesn't matter.
no, it doesn't. Do you want him on the team or not? Like, if he makes them better, if Timofey Mozgov makes Julius Randle and Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell better, then sign him for whatever. You need players to develop these guys. Like same with Luol Deng. Like Luol Deng is not going to lead them to the playoffs. He will not, but he will show these guys how to be a pro. He will be a positive person in the locker room. It's like they're basically replacing him with Nick Young. Or Nick Young with him. Like that's
Right.
a good thing. Like even if he did get hurt, like it's still better.
Right. You know what the Lakers really need? They need Sam Hinkie. That's what they need.
Oh,
That's what they need.
it is
The best
terrible.
the best sign at the draft was right after Ben Simmons got drafted, somebody had a sign that says Hinkie died for your sins.
That's so
But
good.
You know what? Like I mean, I don't know why, but like I like it was I kind of became like a quasi Sixers fan in the sense that like I wanted all their moves to work out, but that meant them still losing all their games, right? So like when Hinkie was there, like I was like, oh man, I hope the Sixers are so good in 2 or 3 years from now, because like I'm a believer in what he does. But now that he's gone, it's like, yeah, like you got Ben Simmons and Dario Saric is going to come over and play, and it's like now if it gets turned around, like I'm afraid that like people won't recognize like what the process really meant. You know what I
It's
mean?
terrible. It's awful that he won't be there.
Yeah.
It's like almost criminal.
And the thing is like, I mean,
That's his baby.
he got crushed by so many like these old school basketball types about
Yeah,
like, oh, how could you do this in Philly? And they deserve better. It's like, yeah, he's trying to win a title.
yeah,
Like he's not trying to lose in the first round every year. You know what I mean? Like
no,
he's trying to win a title. Um, so I mean, look, if Ben Simmons turns out to be good, and what if Joel Embiid is good? I mean, look, they still have a lot of mismatched pieces, right? Like it's an
yeah,
incomplete roster, but like you can see I feel like you can still see light now, right? Because they just have it's almost like they have so many guys that like, yeah, they're not all gonna hit, but they all can't really miss either, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, and look, they have the Lakers pick either this year or next year, um, which, like, I mean, the Lakers probably won't be bad enough unless they get lucky to get a top 3 pick, but it's gonna probably be a top 7 pick.
I would
So,
say that's likely.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'm
All
sad for
right.
Sam Hinkie.
I'm sad for Oklahoma City. They just lost their team.
It's a one horse town, anyways, Greg.
Hey yo. All right, buddy. Well, I guess we'll end it there. We'll end it there. That was a fun one. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we're back online
I know. I
doing
wish we had more.
podcasts.
Maybe, you know what? Next week, like I promised, like we'll do it since it's not a holiday week. We'll do like a nice little Wimbledon recap,
Oh,
right?
that's tennis, by the way, everyone.
And then like British Open maybe.
We got British Open coming up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
All right, buddy. And we got the
sprinkle in some
Euros.
baseball.
We'll talk about the
The
Euros a little
Euros,
bit. The
yes.
Dodgers are
God, I
doing pretty well right now.
can't. Yeah, I'm watching them on MLB Network. Um, I can't wait. Germany and France.
Yeah. All right,
So
man. Well, all right. So this is gonna go up on Tilting Ground. Michael Muto will post this. Our famed producer. He'll put it on. Yeah, I'll put it on my Twitter at Greg2126. This will go up tomorrow morning probably. Um, I guess that's it, my man.
it's
I
been
guess
real and
that's
it's
it.
been real fun.
Yes, sir. Have a good Wednesday. Have a good week,
All right,
everyone.
buddy. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Later.